This is Common Sense Radio. Straightforward and no excuses.
All right. Come on now.
This is the Steve Gruber Show.
Call me crazy.
Oh, yeah.
What I said was perfectly right and spot on accurate.
Boy's got a mouth like a cannon, always shooting it all.
Stop.
Got it.
Yeah, stop. I mean, you're way off script.
Got it in me. Gonna quit until it all comes out.
Hey, boy!
Been a long education.
Yeah, you know, it's not cynical. It's common sense.
Pay attention to me when I'm talking to you.
I'm gonna rock the nation. Rock the nation.
Genuine, accountable, and raw. Here is Steve Gruber.
All right, and welcome to it. It is Monday, my friends, and thank you so much for dialing it in. Appreciate your support. It's the Steve Gruber Show on a Monday. If you'd like to get involved with the conversation, please do. 888-900-9966, 888-900-9966. 40 years ago today. Do you know where you were? A lot of people in Michigan know where they were 40 years ago today. Because it was 40 years ago, November 10th, 1975, that the Edmund Fitzgerald disappeared and sank beneath the waves of Lake Superior. It's truly a Michigan thing. It truly is. It's a Michigan thing. And I don't know why it touches us so, but I remember that was all anybody talked about. That was all anybody talked about in, at the end of 1975. I'll admit it, I was 10 years old. Do your math. I was 10 years old, and I remember my mother, crying. And I'm thinking, we don't know these people, but her empathy for the folks, the 29 people. No bodies ever recovered. No explanation of why the ship actually sank, what happened. No distress signal was sent. It was hit by 25-foot waves over and over again. Some believe the Fitzgerald may have been hit by a super wave of 100 feet. Of 100 feet. Can you imagine? 100-foot rogue wave. That's really what they think. Think it is possible that the ship was destroyed by a rogue wave. So, that was 40 years ago. And in places today, all over the state of Michigan, memorials will be held. Places like Two Harbors, Traverse City, Whitefish Point, and, of course, Detroit. Gitchagumi, right? The big lake they call Gitchagumi. It is Monday here on the program, just reflecting back on what it means to be from Michigan and things that resonate with us here, things that we remember. And that big ship was one of them, 729 feet long, and disappeared beneath the waves. Yeah. Well, Hillary Clinton apparently, when we're looking for a smoking gun, apparently there might be one with Hillary Clinton when it comes to her emails. An agreement signed by Hillary acknowledged criminal penalties for mishandling classified information has now gone public. The Washington Free Beacon reporting, experts had guessed that Clinton signed such an agreement, but a copy of her specific contract obtained by the Competitive Enterprise Institute through an open records request and shared with the Washington Free Beacon reveals for the first time the exact language of the non-disclosure agreement. Quote, I have been advised that the unauthorized disclosure, unauthorized retention, or negligent handling of SCI by me could cause irreparable injury to the United States or be used to advantage by a foreign nation, the agreement states. It is not even close. One day after being sworn in as Secretary of State, Hillary Clinton signed a non-disclosure agreement known as a Sensitive Compartmented Information Non-Disclosure Agreement that made clear the criminal charges for any authorized disclosure of sensitive government information. Clinton, so far that we know of, has received at least 2 emails while Secretary of State on her personal email since marked TS/SCI, top secret, sensitive, compartmented information, according to the U.S. intelligence community's Inspector General. The State Department said in September 2 months ago that Clinton's private email system set up at her Chappaqua, New York home was not authorized to handle sensitive, compartmented information. Now, the Democratic presidential frontrunner has defended her unauthorized possession of SCI and her sending of emails containing classified information by claiming that the information was not marked as classified when it was sent or received. Now, I want you to listen to this. The language of her non-disclosure agreement suggests it was Clinton's responsibility solely, her responsibility solely, to ascertain whether information shared through her private email server was in fact classified. Here it is, I quote. Here's what she signed. A document that read as follows. I understand that it is my responsibility to consult with appropriate management authorities in the department in order to ensure that I know whether information or material within my knowledge or control that I have reason to believe might be SCI. Also signing the NDAs, along with her, were her aides, Huma Abedin and Cheryl Mills, promising not to disclose sensitive information unless authorized. Such agreements are the subject of this ongoing FBI investigation. And though Hillary Clinton would very much like to make this an issue of her private email server and just a matter of politics as usual, it seems the more evidence that continues to pile up showing her in violation of her duties as Secretary of State and more, this scandal smacks not of partisan politics, but I'll be honest with you, of gross negligence, reckless behavior. It to me sounds like reckless behavior. How does it strike you? Well, what's your gut feeling when you hear about, well, she signed the non-disclosure agreements. She knew that it was her responsibility to ask her whether it has a stamp on it, whether somebody went through and said, stamp, top secret. You're the Secretary of State. You're supposed to be smart enough to know what's supposed to be sensitive and what should not be coming through that server. And you should never have that server anyway. Not for official business. That's why we don't have, why would Secretary of Defense, heck, give them a home server. The Vice President, heck, have the President use a home server. Why not? There's no risk there. They can't get in. The fact of the matter is she violated the non-disclosure agreement that she signed. Huma Abedin, Cheryl Mills may have done the same. All of these people may have put you and I at risk. And the United States national security at risk because of their hubris. Because they are smarter than you and I, and they're above that law. And how dare anybody tell them what they need to do or not do? I mean, who do you think you are? You're no Hillary Clinton. Wake up. All right, take a deep breath. Put your pencils down. There'll be a quiz later, but put your pencils down for now. We're going to take a little break from class, have a little bit of fun with Mike Hughes and television right after this.
Delivering Michigan common sense with a big dose of truth and honesty.
All right, it is Monday. Welcome to it. The hotline number, by the way, the Common Sense Hotline. And if you ever want to join the conversation, the Common Sense Hotline, write this down, 888 900 9966 888 900 9966. Bring it with gusto, my friends. Bill checking in on the hotline from Petoskey this morning, checking in on WMKT territory. Bill, welcome to the program.
Well, morning, Steve. My question is, how the heck did Huma Abedin even get security access? I worked in classified information back in the 80s, and I'll tell you, it took me a year. I was a fresh kid out of high school. It took me a year to get my access. And then a couple of years later, I got married to a foreign national. They pulled my access in a heartbeat.
That was back when rules mattered. I mean,
No
seriously,
kidding.
that was back when rules mattered. I mean, you see humanity, and that's one thing. What about the attorney David Kendall? What about Hillary Clinton's attorney David Kendall, who was extended, this security clearance because he was her attorney? I mean, come on. What is his standing?
Yeah, I worked with a lot of people. It took them a long time to get security access, and I'll tell you, like I said, they pulled in a heartbeat. The other question is, who's going to prosecute Hillary, and who's going to prosecute these people? I mean, Hillary was the only one that knew, obviously. So you've got a whole list of people that knew about the servers, that knew that they were illegal. Who's going to prosecute it? Congress is going to have to step up and take these people on. That's all there is to it.
I agree, Bill. Thanks for checking in. There you have it. Bill checking in from Petoskey. You can do the same thing. Bring the common sense, deliver it with gusto, and we'll talk about it. The 888-900-9966, 888-900-9966 is the Common Sense Hotline. All right, then. Let's take a break from all the heavy lifting. It's time for recess. It's time for recess here, so put your pencils down, push the notebook away. We'll have a pop quiz later, but right now it's time to have some popcorn, have some fun, have some time with Mike Hughes and what's new on TV. Michael, welcome back to it.
Hey, thank you. And boy, I wish I had popcorn, but ironically enough, I wanted to tell you about something serious today.
You do?
So sorry about that. I know I get silly. Most of the time I'm telling you about vampires and stuff like that. Right. Zombies. But, Veterans Day is coming up Wednesday.
Correct.
And TV often doesn't do much on it. But tonight and tomorrow night, PBS has really, really good documentaries about veterans, and I think that they're worth mentioning. The times are different on some PBS stations, but almost all of them will have it at these times. 10 o'clock tonight is an independent lens, which is about a single Vietnam vet. It simply follows him for an hour and a half, but he's a really interesting guy, and remaking his life. He's a biker. He's a dad. He's a stepdad. You'll just find it really interesting. I'm a Vietnam vet myself, but I'm very, very. I realize how lucky I was that I got to spend all my time basically at a desk job in Saigon. And the more you see things about the real Vietnam vets, you realize how lucky any of us were who weren't out in the midst of it like that. But that's a really good one. 10 o'clock tonight. Then tomorrow night are two of them back-to-back. At 8 o'clock is one on Iwo Jima, and boy, it follows guys on the 70th anniversary of Iwo Jima, going back, both Americans and one Japanese survivor going back to the island. Only one day a year is the island open to the public, and that's for that ceremony. That's a really good one. And then at 9 o'clock, Rick Burns, this terrific documentary maker from Ann Arbor, has focused on just veterans' care over the years. It's a good hour-long documentary, and in the Revolutionary War, 42% of all the soldiers who were wounded died. In Afghanistan, 9%. It shows you how much has changed, but then it also shows you how much now we have so many wounded veterans that it's important to help afterwards. Anyway, sorry for being serious, but those are
good
just
stuff.
three really good things.
No, that's really good stuff, and it's important, when we talk about the VA scandal and the things and the challenges veterans face, and the fact that the percentage of homelessness among veterans is far higher than the national average, far higher. The suicide rate among veterans, far higher. So these are important topics, Mike. No question about that. But I'll give you 1 minute.
Okay,
to lighten
be
it up.
Light. Okay, first of all, Fargo, I've always been telling you how good Fargo is ordinarily. It is even better now. It is just, even if you missed the first 4 episodes, started at 10 o'clock tonight on FX. This show is fantastic. Just in the middle of, right now, an ordinary butcher in Laverne, Minnesota is somehow surrounded by all these events. Just soak it in. If you don't know what's happening yet, just watch it gradually. You'll enjoy it. It's just great television. The other thing is just on Thursday night, last week, CBS moved its comedies back to Thursday because football was over. Same thing, great night. The one difference, there's another really good episode of Mom at 9 o'clock, and then Two Broke Girls is going to show up at 9:30 starting Thursday night, because they had a show called Angel from Hell, and it just wasn't that good, and it was going to debut this Thursday. They decided wisely delay it, put Two Broke Girls, which is so-so. It's not a great show.
No, but they backed off the garbage and called medium garbage.
That's right. So that's a victory for the viewers. We're up to medium garbage.
There you have it. Mike Hughes, everybody. Thank you so much.
Okay, thanks a lot.
There you have it. Mike Hughes, everybody. And don't forget those Veteran Days specials. Good stuff. We want to go back to the Common Sense Hotline. Rick on the line in Mason today. Rick, welcome to the program.
Morning, Steve. For your listeners out there who read Lansing Snake Journal guest editorial by a guy by the name of Daniel Webster, understand that his whole argument there is false. He's against expanded gun carrying privileges for people who would qualify for them. The sources that he cites all have a long history of being anti-gun owner. And then he goes off into the not so much the statistic, but why is gun violence so much lower in Europe and Canada? And the answer to that is, well, maybe gun violence is lower in Europe and Canada, but they've got an increasing amount of violence on persons, especially with the influx of people from the Middle East that are moving there in droves, and they're starting to support themselves by crime.
All right, we got to run. Thank you so much. It's the Steve Gruber Show on a Monday.
Getting your day started with news from around the state and around the world. Common Sense Radio. This is the Steve Gruber Show.
Welcome back to it, Steve Gruber Show. Where do these things go? Where do these things go sometimes? Computers, give me a bit of a headache sometimes. If you didn't know, the big climate conference is getting underway here at the end of the month, I guess. I think it's November 30th to December the 11th. And, of course, as they get together for this policy conference, it's the biggest thing facing the world, of course, climate change. It's the biggest national security threat, according to Barack Obama. Cities are going to be underwater. We're all going to die. I mean, there's no alternative to it. There's just no alternative. At least that's what we'd be led to believe. Because you have a car and you have a refrigerator and you're an American, and therefore it's your fault that there's this alleged climate change. And if you don't understand, you're destroying the world. And so in Paris, they're going to get together and talk about that and fix the problem. They're going to fix the problem, because if we don't, there's a new report out that says if we don't fix it, then 100 million people will be driven to poverty in just the next few years. Now, this according to CNN. Very trustworthy news source, right? One of your favorites. Rising. Let me just. Here's some of the story highlights from CNN. Rising sea levels from unchecked carbon emissions could drive more than 100 million people into extreme poverty. Submerged the homes of over 500 million. That according to two new reports. The reports have been released ahead of the United Nations 21st annual global conference known as COP21, being held in France. Climate change is an acute and pressing threat to the poor, and any climate stabilization policies must be integrated with efforts to eliminate poverty, according to a new report from the World Bank. So, climate stabilization policies must be integrated with efforts to eliminate poverty. How do these things work together? Do you smell a rat? The study found that global temperatures rising stand to push more than 100 million people into extreme poverty in the next 15 years, with sub-Saharan Africa and South Asia most at risk. The problem with all this nonsense is we've heard it all before. That'd be part of the problem. Yeah, that'd be part of the problem. We've heard it all before, and it never comes true. It never comes true. It just never comes to pass. And so, therefore, you have to wonder, why do we continue to listen? Well, I don't. Why does anybody continue to listen to these people that have their batting average is less than 100. Their predictions are so off so often and so far out of whack that nobody would believe these people. Anyhow, let's go to the hotlines. We've got Paula on the line checking in today. Paula, welcome to the program.
Hi, Steve. I'm going back to Uma Abedin, and I just wanted to pass on some information that I know that her parents were hugely involved in the Muslim Brotherhood. And I'm not real good at looking stuff up on computer, but I just thought that bit of information that I know you guys are good at doing, looking things up on the computer, but I thought I would pass that information along because I find it interesting that with her parents being involved in the Muslim Brotherhood, and then she's so involved with Hillary Clinton, I just find that interesting.
Well, we're going to look at, we're going to find all that. Let's see here. It didn't take me very long. Huma Abedin's Muslim Brotherhood ties, despite mounting evidence of close ties between the Muslim Brotherhood and Huma Abedin, Secretary of State Clinton's close aide, Republican congressional leaders. This is articles from July, by the way. Particularly John McCain and John Boehner continue to target their ire not at the State Department, but at Representative Michelle Bachmann. See, again, you wonder who's in charge around here because, there you go. Yeah, there's some ties here, apparently. And I'll look into it for you.
Yeah, her parents are highly involved. Involved.
Yeah, I'll keep an eye on it. In fact, one of our regular contributors here to the program apparently has Waleed Shobat, who's been on the show regularly, says that Anthony Weiner's in-laws are also connected. I appreciate the call so much.
Yeah, that would be her parents.
Yep, there you go. Exactly, I got it.
Okay, thanks, Steve.
I got you.
Uh-huh.
There you have it, and it's just another article here, and maybe we should have Waleed Shobat back on the program to talk about it. That would be an interesting conversation to have. The phone number here, 888-900-9966, 888-900-9966 is the number to call. Something else to share with you today, and again, there is just so much. The Supreme Court ruling from October the 22nd, by the way, has paved the way for gun confiscation, if you didn't know that. The Court of Appeals for the Second U.S. Court, for the U.S. Circuit, that is, issued a long-awaited decision on the constitutionality of the most drastic gun control law in American history, the New York SAFE Act of 2013, which was passed into law in 15 minutes with no debate. No debate was allowed. It's a complete ban on the sale or transfer of all military-style semi-automatic rifles manufactured within the past several decades. A total ban on the AR-15, AK-47, M14, HKG-3, and the list goes on. And many other civilian copies of military firearms. Prior to the passage of the law, Governor Anthony Cuomo publicly stated that he was considering confiscation of existing rifles, but the final version of the law allowed existing owners to keep their rifles as long as they were registered with the state. Upon the death of the owner, however, the rifle will be confiscated. It cannot be transferred to an heir within New York State. And by the way, you will not be paid. Once those firearms become contraband, the government will confiscate and destroy them without compensation. Second Amendment rights are now hanging by a one-vote margin. Make no mistake, in the same Supreme Court that has upheld Obamacare twice and given a national right to gay marriage, constitutional conservatives and Second Amendment supporters ought to be terrified over the prospect of Justice Scalia having a full-on heart attack during a Hillary Clinton administration, which will be the most open and transparent administration in American history. Yeah, because she's so open and honest as it is now. Oh, Lord. It's time to put our country first, not a political party, not the Republican Party, not the Democratic Party, not the Libertarian Party, the Green Party. I don't care what party you're involved with. It's time to look at common sense and put this nation first. The Constitution is not a living, breathing document any more than the Ten Commandments are a living, breathing document, which means, the document will change with the times you live in. Well, talk about Orwellian, talk about a Marxist idea. We'll just make the Constitution fit what we want it to fit, and therefore we'll change the meaning of the laws and the words, and it'll all work. It's all newspeak. 41 after. We're going to talk football after the break.
Taking a closer look at the stories that affect you most with a big dose of common sense.
All righty. Let's check in now with the hotline. Again, it's 888-900-9966. 888-900-9966 is the number to call. And we've got Henry on the line in Lansing today. Henry, welcome to the program.
Well, thank you. It's been a long time since I called, so I thought I'd stick my 2 cents for it again.
All right, I'm going to give you 2 cents, maybe 3.
Global warming. Let's start there.
All right.
Global warming is an interesting concept, considering that they say the polar caps are melting and Antarctica is expanding. Now, you've got to figure out who you want to believe in that one.
Well, I believe the NASA satellites, the Antarctic ice cap and so has been expanding only for about 10,000 years, though.
Yeah, we don't want an ice age.
Right.
So,
anyhow, go on.
Well, weapons. I'd like to see them try and take all these if they don't pay for them at least. But I'd like to see them try and take all of them anyway. That's kind of an interesting concept.
Well, it's not going to work very well.
I get online and I listen and I look and I see, and the basic thing I see everywhere is from my cold dead fingers.
Well,
so I don't know. It could be this.
I'm just telling you that what they've done in New York, and that's the way it is. And I appreciate you calling in, Henry. That's what they've done in the state of New York. They've made it so that these civilian copies of military weapons are no longer legal once you pass away or once you try to get rid of them. You can't sell them or give them to an heir, so they're not really yours anymore. They're on loan, I suppose, from the government, which is, not the way it's supposed to work. I appreciate you calling in. The hotline number is 888-900-9966. So a lot of things changed this week over the weekend. Big weekend in college football. Big disappointment for Michigan State, obviously. A bad call, but they never should have been in that position anyway, say many. But they have fallen out of contention for the college football playoffs after losing to Nebraska by a point. And Clemson has taken over the top spot, moving out the unbeaten Buckeyes of Ohio State. Here to sort it all out, Tim Staudt, the Dean of Sports. Tim, welcome to it.
Morning, Steve.
All right, so what do you make of them? I mean, Michigan State was flirting with disaster several times this season. Finally, it caught up to them.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, they like you said, they flirted with disaster. They played almost every game close to the vest. And when you get yourself in those situations, is the break going to go your way every single time? For Nebraska, they'd lost 5 games by 13 points. They were incredibly frustrated. When in their own mind were they going to get a break? I give Nebraska credit. There are a lot of teams, when you've lost what they've lost, and your crowd's on you like their crowd's on you, when you're down 38-26 with 4:20 to go, it's just a question of playing it out, and that's another loss, and on we go. But they didn't do that. They hung in there and played to the bitter end, and, maybe they needed a break along the way to make it work. But nonetheless, that's what happened. And so now, Nebraska thinks we win 2, we can still salvage something. Their last game is against Iowa at home. They got a shot to knock off 2 undefeated teams at home before the end of the year, which would give them some momentum for next year. That hadn't happened yet, but it started with Michigan State.
So where do the Spartans go from here? I guess they've got a lot of injuries. They've got a lot of challenges. Coach D'Antonio's got he's got to pick up the pieces and move forward.
Yeah, I mean, they're favored heavily over Maryland. I think the big key out of that game is, can they play a shred of better defense than what they've seen? I mean, I understand why Maryland's an underdog, although Maryland's played some teams tough for times during the game. And look, State hasn't blown any of the lousy teams out. They barely beat Rutgers. They barely beat Purdue. They struggled with Indiana for most of the day. They struggled with Central Michigan for most of the day. I mean, they can't look past this game whatsoever. To be honest with you, if they win out, That's going to keep them right. The Ohio State game always was the pivotal game. Where I think this game affects them more than any other game, the Nebraska game, is that if things don't go their way with Ohio State, they might have still been able to salvage the Rose Bowl. Now, I don't see that happening. I think between Ohio State and Iowa, one of those two will end up with the Rose Bowl, and for Michigan State, it'll be all or nothing. And they obviously are going to have to play a lot better defensively when they play Ohio State. And I don't know if they're capable of doing it. I mean, what I've seen them do all year has been pretty standard, but their secondary has got major league issues, and I just don't know if they have enough from where they are right now to solve those to the extent they're going to need to do that to beat Ohio State.
And Michigan, meanwhile, seems to be, after a very close call in Minnesota a week ago, came and pounded one. Well, let's be honest, Rutgers, the Scarlet Knights aren't much, but Michigan pounded on them, and they look pretty good overall.
Well, Michigan all of a sudden now is rooting like crazy for Ohio State to beat Michigan State, because if that happens, Michigan can win out and play in the Big Ten championship game. That requires them to win at Indiana, which to me is no sure thing. They would have to win at Penn State, and that's no sure thing. And they would have to beat Ohio State at home, and that's no sure thing, but it's still out there for them if Ohio State beats Michigan State. I mean, look, at the start of the year, the Ohio State-Michigan State game had a lot riding on it. It still certainly does. But I think the difference is right now is that going into that game, there aren't many people you can find who believe Michigan State, the way it is playing and the way it has played all year, is going to win that game. That doesn't mean they can't, but a lot is going to happen different from where they're playing so far for them, to have a reasonable chance. I think Ohio State's got issues, too. Ohio State's got to get its other quarterback in rhythm at Illinois this weekend, so that they feel good about what they're doing moving forward. Ohio State keeps winning and keeps moving down. They're down to number 2 in the poll this week because they haven't impressed very many people either. But if they get their regular quarterback there back this week in Illinois and he gets into rhythm, then they're going to be a solid favorite, at least going into the Michigan State game.
Yeah, we just got to keep him out of the bar, and we'll be all right there at Ohio State.
I mean, they got to put a chain on him after practice and after the games, let alone those other players.
Yeah.
That's a huge issue at Ohio State, is keeping them all from getting suspended.
Well, there is that. Another clean program at the Ohio State University.
But there's a lot to play for these last 3 weeks, and November is always an incredible month. It started off incredible. We're down to 6 undefeated teams. More of them are going to fall. It crystallizes week to week to week, and there are a lot more theatrics, I think, that are coming up, too.
Absolutely. Tim Staudt, the Dean on Sports. Always a pleasure, my friend.
Talk to you soon.
There you have it. Tim Staudt, everybody, here on the Steve Gruber Show on a Monday. Yeah, they could just keep the Buckeyes out of the bar. They'd have a much better chance of winning football games. Can't do it. You can't beat yourself with a hangover on the football field. 52 after.